coming off a tough loss. You know, tip your hat to Air Force, but we couldn't have started a worse way. Actually, we started decent. We had 2 3 and outs on defense. Um, had a chance to go up 2 scores, and things kind of caved. Snowballed after our first turnover. We had 3 turnovers in a row plus the safety. So basically, 4 series in a row offensively that we weren't able to get any points. I thought our defense played decently. Against the number 1 offense in our conference and did some good things. We moved the ball after that on offense, but we settled for too many field goals. Um, but hopefully our both Dennis and Matthias kicked well, so that was good. It was our best special teams game of the year. Played better on defense, much better defensively, but wasn't one of our better offensive outputs. So back to the drawing board. Our guys are working hard. We had a really good day today at practice, and just been impressed with our guys' fortitude, especially with all these tough losses. And as we get ready for Nevada, as I watch them, very similar to us. Last week the game kind of got away from them, but games prior to that, a lot of close losses. They're in a lot of games, some heartbreaking losses. Just showed us, one of the best football coaches in our conference. Smart coach, and so, like I said, they've had a tough season like us, a lot of close losses. We haven't won up there in a long time, and so, we recognize it's a hard place to play, hard place to win, and we're looking forward to this challenge going up against Nevada this week.
Vic Aquino, SB Nation. Just speaking of Nevada, you look on paper, obviously not much to look at, but they have obviously some good bright spots. Are there some things you just want to see, don't want to see, just the season's going on at this point?
Yeah, for us, I mean, like, people can look at their record or whatever and things like that, but and it's like I tell guys, it's not like we're Ohio State. You know what I mean? We're struggling ourselves, and so we just got to focus on ourselves. Like I said, they've been in a lot of close games and had opportunities to win just like us. If they were able to pull off some of those games, their record would be different right now, just like we feel ours are. So I think big thing, Vic, is just make sure we play better. We were disappointed in the way we played last week on offense. Again, I thought we played better on defense, and they're well against a really good offensive team, but we didn't play very well. And so I know our guys are looking forward to bouncing back after last week. So the focus is more on us. Like I said, we're nobody to say, oh, look at their record. I mean, look at our own record. I mean, we got to improve ourselves.
And another kind of generic question. It seems like things still, even all the years you're coaching, still surprise you. I'm kind of figuring out myself. Is it the parity, the portal, just the way teams' identities can shift from season to season with so much roster change? And
yeah, it's the thing that's interesting to me is so 2 of the top teams in our league that are playing well right now are New Mexico and Hawaii. We beat both of them, and we just lost to Air Force and lost to Wyoming that kind of middle of the pack to lower. So it just goes to show, like you said, in our conference, anybody can beat anybody. Hawaii just got after San Diego State, who is leading the conference. Boise lost the games. So yeah, there is definitely some parity in our league, and it's just a great testament to that. On any week, anybody can beat anybody.
Aaron Johnson with the Mercury News, and you mentioned you liked what you saw from the team's mental fortitude, but what have you seen from them getting back to practice this week?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was from practice this week. I thought the practice today was, because of that, I was encouraged by the way we practiced today, and that's all we can do. We just got to go 1-0 in today's practice, and then try to come back tomorrow and have another good one. But I liked what I saw today. The guys came back yesterday with our meetings and stuff, did a good job there, and today in our Tough Tuesday practice, they came out today and practiced well, and so just encouraged by the way our guys continue to keep attacking it. And again, it's a testament to the leadership, and hopefully we can pull off a game. These close games that both us and Nevada have been losing. Hopefully, we can find a way to win this one.
And then Leland had a big day against Air Force. Just what did you see from him with Air Force kind of limiting Danny a little bit, having Kyrie and him kind of take that bigger role?
Yeah, just he had a lot of yards after catch, and with those three guys, it's hard to really focus on one person. You know, what I mean, just 1, 2, 3 punch with those three guys, and Jackson played well too. Jackson at tight end, and so I thought Leland played really well, and we're going to need him to play well. On Saturday. I mean, he's a big target. He can run. He's fast. He's strong. Super explosive, and we need him. We need everything from Leland and Danny and Kyrie and Jackson and Matt and just all of our receivers.
And then with Walker going down early with injury in the game against Air Force and returning with Xavier Ward taking over for that drive, do you think if there's ever a situation where Walker can't go in a game, will we see Xavier or Tama or anyone else get chances?
We're working on that right now. So we're working on who would be the backup. So yeah, that's not set in stone. We'll see who practices the best this week.
Hey, Coach, Niles Hall with the Spear. And then during the season, we've seen some slow starts, whether it's like the offensive side or the defensive. How are you going to ensure that the team comes out with a fast start this week?
Whew, that's a good question. that's our that's our mantra every week to start fast, and we've done everything. And like I said, our defense played fast this week. There's times where the offense has come out fast, and against Hawaii, the offense came off fast, and so we just got to continue to keep working on it. I mean, you know, our players are human, you know what I mean, and so it's not like we can press a button and they'll come up, fast, and so we just got to stay after it and keep trying to coach it, try to see in our preparation, our warm ups, and all those kinds of things, and continue to try to chip away at that. But you're right, that's definitely an area we got to get better at.
Hey Coach, Howdy Barghouti with the Spear and Spartan Daily. So Danny Scudero, obviously first in the nation in receiving yards. How do you guys plan to get Danny involved early on after a quiet game with just 41 yards after his 250-yard performance the game prior?
Yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, he was open, but to Air Force's credit, I mean, Walker had to scramble. So I don't think there's anything we have to do. It's just Walker didn't have time to throw him the ball. You know what I mean? And so we just got to do a better job of protecting him. But schematically, yeah, he's going to get his touches. You know what I mean? And it's really hard to take him away with what we do offensively and with all the other receivers. Kind of like Vic said. I mean, it's then you get leading to get some stuff. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it'll come in the natural course of the play calling, and some of the stuff, like I said, it was designed to go to him, but unfortunately, Walker had to scramble.
And then the running back room right now, Steve Chavez Soto, Lamar Radcliffe. How do you kind of plan to split the load as the season ends off? Is it going to be also more of a 50-50 split between them?
Well, we kind of see how they practice, and so Coach Smith, he grades every practice, all the periods, and kind of see who does the best, and that person starts. And then you're thinking it's going to go 50-50, but it's also who has a hot hand. And some guys are designed to get these plays, some guys are designed to get that, but a lot of it is who has a hot hand.
Nicky Rice with KSJS. Coach, Nevada's 1-8 on the season, winless in league play, but I feel like Coach Cho always gets the most out of his defenses, no matter who's out there. Just what are you seeing from the Wolfpack defensively? Because despite their win-loss ratio, feels like they're always going to play a full 60 out there.
Yeah, I mean it was a low-scoring game with them versus Boise State going into the fourth quarter. I mean they've played everybody tough. It got out of last week. Things got out of hand pretty quickly, so that was kind of to Utah State's credit. But that was kind of an anomaly. It just most of the games have been close, and like you said, Coach Schott is a really good defensive coach, really good coach. But his specialty is defense, and his defenses are always well coached, well schemed, do a lot of different things. But yeah, you talked about their record, but I was saying to Vic, I mean it's not like we're 9-0 ourselves. We gotta come ready to play and get off to a fast start ourselves, and so yeah, that's the approach we're taking. We got to make sure that we play our best and see what happens at the end. But we're not looking at their record. We have to look at our own record that, we got to improve.
How you doing, Coach? Nick Austin with Zeality. As the season's gone on, I feel like more and more guys are getting nicked up a little bit here and there. Has there been any messaging to the guys, as far as taking care of their bodies off the field and making sure they come as healthy as they can on game day?
Yeah, it's a great question from the standpoint of, we're in the last month of November, and like you said, a ton of guys. I mean, guys are starting to get nicked up and banged up, and football is a physical game, and so we don't practice on Sunday by design, so they can get treatment and get some rest, and then Monday is more of a mental day with walkthroughs and lifting and just meetings, and again, both of those days are recovery days, and so we got required hours for recovery for those guys that are injured. And I mean, that's just part of being a professional. We always talk to those guys, Nick. If you got any aspirations at all to go to the next level, you got to learn how to take care of your body. But if you want to perform the best you can right now, you got to take care of your body, because that's your livelihood. And as guys go to the league, they recognize that their company is their body, and you have to take care of that to have a shot. And so, yes, it's definitely a major emphasis and point right now to make sure our guys get healthy and get as much treatment as you can.
Hey, Coach. Mitchell Park from Journalism 138. I think on Saturday you had some reservations speaking about Walker's performance specifically. Do you have any new reflections or discussions you're willing to share about San Jose's passing?
Yeah, it shows the level that is. I mean, obviously he hadn't thrown an interception in a long time, and he had two interceptions that I'm sure he'd like to take back. When he hurt his knee, probably wasn't the same after that. Just as far as pushing off. But he still throws for, I don't know, 350 or whatever he threw for. But it's kind of goes to the standard. I mean, he's the leading passer in the country, and so the expectations are really high. But a big part too, that as we went back and look at the film, he could have definitely played better, but he didn't get much time. And the big emphasis is up front. We got to do a much better job of protecting Walker, so he can go through his progression. But that was really the point. Yes, he could have played better, but we got to get better up front. We didn't give up any sacks, but there's way too many pressures, too many batted balls that we haven't had in a long time. I mean, we haven't had that many batted balls all season, so both of those are major concerns. The turnovers was number one, but the pressure on Walker is something we have to get fixed this week.
Vic Kino, SB Nation. Obviously, tail end of the season, are there still things like you're hoping or looking to see from, like, maybe an ideal outing, or in terms of defensively, like just like what are you still looking to see? And are there new schemes or new things that you're still trying to be creative with?
Yeah, every week you're trying to improve with what you have, and getting the guys better. That's why you practice every day. Is you work on those things that you might be a little deficient in, and you keep praising the things that you're doing well. And so that'll always be the case. And just really pleased with last week and what they put in some tough situation coming off playing Hawaii and what they did, and now facing an offense that was the complete opposite, running the ball as much as they did. And I thought that those guys did a really nice job in that area.
And in the concept of, I think the team overall, there's always a 1 of 11 assignments, task, discipline. Is there still room, like in some of the guys' heads, like some bandwidth that they can be creative if they see something, or some leeway where they might be able to kind of take advantage of that's probably not in a particular scheme or play or whatnot? If there's a usually, like, everyone's assignment based in that sense, but if someone might see something that's not eye candy, or maybe that's something they can jump the gun on, for instance, like jumping in front of a route or something like that. Can they break off basically on their assignment at some point?
Well, yeah, you have your assignment, but inside your assignment, you play football, like you go play. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a deep third defender, and there's only one route in your third, you go play aggressive inside of it, but on paper it's like I'm the deepest guy in my third, but so there's always stuff like that inside of a call. um, and then you let their natural instincts play from there. You know what I'm saying? So you have an initial assignment, you have initial, where you're supposed to be on this particular play, but then it starts to go, you got to go play, and that's why you have the guys you have on your team to, you hope for their athleticism and those instincts take over from that point.
Aaron Johns with the Mercury News, and what was it like to see the defense get out to a hot start and then force some 3-and-outs early in the game?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Like I said, that was a tough double, like we kind of talked about going into last week. There was 2 weeks really of Hawaii football with the bye week and then that game week. And so you're completely different, mode of operation. And then going to an Air Force team that was extremely, particularly offensively, that was really hot. I mean, they were tops in our conference and putting up crazy numbers offensively, and to come out and do that early and really overall, I mean, 300 yards, we take that every day. They've been averaging 455 yards a game. So I was really pleased in the effort that they played with, the togetherness that they had in some tough situations. So, I was really proud of those guys in that regard.
And you spoke to it, holding them under their averages, and then seeing that performance from your defense at this point in the season, does that instill confidence going forward into the next few
Yeah,
games?
absolutely. These guys, the guys that we have in that room, they have a lot of pride. They work extremely hard every day, whether it be in the meetings or on the practice field, and we want nothing but the best for those guys, and have that reflect on Saturday. We've had our moments where that has definitely been the case, and then some moments that we'd like to get better at. That's just football, but we're playing good people, and we just we're really pleased with how they've just stuck to it each and every week. And there's no pointing fingers, there's none of that. They're just a close-knit group and always looking to improve themselves and be a factor, for our team defensively.
And then facing the triple option offense, it's a big emphasis that to have your eyes in the right place. Just how do you feel like the team did overall in that
I
regard?
thought they did a great job of that. They really did. And again, it takes their want to, their wherewithal to do it every single snap. And a lot of guys, again, we watched a lot of film of these other teams that they played, and that's where they had the breakdowns. They just one time you didn't get it right, and it's a big one. And so I thought we controlled that really well. Again, I thought the effort was outstanding. They kept grinding. There were some long drives, and they just kept in it. We had a couple penalties that really kind of hurt us when you play a team like that, that kept the chains going a little bit. But overall, like I said, if you tell me, before the game that they would have, just 300 yards, I'd be good with that, because of what they've done up to that point, so yeah.
And then what was your thoughts on the Ethan Powell holding call on the 4th and 10 at the end of the game?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen it not called. I mean, because he doesn't know if he's going to get blocked by him or not, so he's kind of gears down, So, but they make the call, and we got to live with it and move on. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. It's football.
Hey, Coach, Niles Hall with the Spear. Moving forward to this week, how are you gonna? Nevada's like bottom of the conference in some major categories. How are you gonna make sure that the guys don't see Nevada's deficiencies and are ready for the game?
Yeah, that means nothing to me. Like, we see when you watch the film, you see that they have really good athletes everywhere. They generate, they move the ball. Just something happens where fluky thing, or a turnover happens or something like that bogs them down a little bit. But they got 3 really good running backs. They've got a quarterback super athletic. They have 3 quarterbacks that are real athletic. And you can see that they've kind of like us. They had some really close losses. Lost to Fresno by 3, lost to I think Middle Tennessee by a point, lost to New Mexico by 2. On the road. All these are on the road, and so you can see that they're a good outfit. Just unfortunately, they ran into a couple of situations where they didn't finish the game or win those games. But their offense, I don't look at that. I watch the film. The film says that they can do a lot of things.
Any more questions for Coach?
Hey, Coach. Mitchell Park, Journalism 138. A few weeks ago, I think it was after the Wyoming game, you said that defensively we're changing things at the last minute or just not playing consistently. Is that correct? Do you remember that?
I don't remember. What do you mean changing
On
things?
on defense, the defense was good the whole game, I believe you said, and then just made a change toward the end of the game, trying to make a play,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
trying too hard to make a
Yeah,
play,
right.
overreaching or something. Do you see any improvements in the consistency over in the past 3 weeks or so?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that we talk about all the time is like you don't, all of a sudden like turn it on more so. Like you should be at the same level throughout, and regardless of the situation, you should be playing at that same level. I think they just started to press, like they felt, some of that, like I got to make a play, I got to win this game for us, type of feeling, which is a natural thing to do as an athlete. You want to be the one that puts you over the hump that you can win it, but sometimes that's a detriment because you're doing too much and not what's asked of you. So but I think the guys have understood that, and again, every game, every rep is a teaching moment, and so we have a bunch of those. And again, I just love the resolve that they have because they come to work every day ready to get better.
Thanks, Coach.
Happy Veterans Day to all those people out there. It's I had a grandfather who was served in the army in World War II, and so today is a day I always think of him. So happy Veterans Day to all those people out there. Thank you.
Coach Vicakino, SB Nation. Can you maybe comment on the offensive line adjustments or changes, like from that last week going to this week? Just seemed like maybe it compounded a little bit what Walker was going through, even though he had a good day, and even the running game was a pretty good day, but just around there, obviously the changes there.
Some of it's because of the injuries that we've sustained, and it's been one of those years where you got one guy that's got injured. I think it was Daniel Maleni was out after I forget the second or third game. And then Nate was ruled out this past game, and just trying to find some consistency and some continuity with those guys. And it's you're right, it makes it difficult, but at the same time too, though, it's like I said last week. I mean, we don't do a ton up front, and got a couple pass protections. We got 5 variations or 5 run plays, but different variations of it. So we got to just be more consistent and just gel and play harder. We got to play harder. Yeah.
And obviously, when Walker goes down, the dynamics change,
Right.
and then knowing that you have 3 at least the ones on the top 3 part of the roster, very different. And how hard is it to dynamically for them to come in and change schemes or just mentality?
It's tough, and how many guys get the reps throughout the practice, and what does it look like through the practice week, and where's the time invested, and all that sort of stuff. It factors into that. But at this point, it's one of those things where obviously we want X to play and to do a good job, and we want everybody that goes in the game to do a good job, and unfortunately he's had some unforeseen things that's happened. I mean, you go in there and in the Wyoming game, and the ball gets batted and he goes for a pick 6. In this past game, it just dribbles down his leg and fumbles, and and we're about to go in and score, and one of those things. But it's difficult, but at the same time too, it's it's coaching, it's getting the guys ready to play, and it's about the guys also accepting the coaching and doing what the coach should do. So it's one of those things where you never want your starting quarterback to get hurt, and I think it's across, whether it's the NFL, whether it's major college football, when the starting quarterback gets hurt, offensive production is not as good, obviously, and so we got to find ways to keep him healthy, and hopefully he can finish out the season for us.
Aaron Johns with the Mercury News, and then once Egan returned from the injury, how do you think his injury was kind of affecting his passing?
Yeah, I think it did. Obviously, I think there was a little concern, there, and I think that's probably in the back of his mind. And we talked today, and I said, when I can tell by your face, what you're feeling. And I think there was a little bit of concern going back in there. His face was a little bit more serious when he's smiling, and he's he has that look on his face, and he's smiling and kind of not joking around, but there's a confidence feeling. He plays a lot better. I mean, that's just people in general. And so being able to see that and trying to work through that, coming out halftime, you saw his smile, his glow, and you couldn't tell. He sustained like a little nick in the beginning of the game, so he finished off, played a little bit better. But yeah, it's one of those things where we got more pressure, more leakage this game. He goes ahead and is probably not feeling great, after having coming out the game, and then to go back in and kind of feeling that again, it forces you to get the ball out even sooner than you really want to. And, we didn't have the time to get backside to some of our concepts that, look pretty good to get there, but it is what it is. And we got to just get better and then move on.
And then what was Air Force? The Air Force was creating a lot of pressures and
Mhm.
creating a lot of batted balls. Just what were they doing to kind of get the offense out of rhythm?
Yeah, they just played harder. They did. They were, especially 96. We knew going into the game, he's a dog and he's going to go ahead and he's going to play physical. He's going to play fast and take that fight to us. And then as he started progressing and getting to the quarterback and making it a little bit more disruptive, I think the other guys around him got a lot more confident and they started pinning the ears back. And, it's one of those things where we're trying to, we trying to run the football and, you get some holding calls here and there. It puts you behind the sticks. And it was a difficult day, and those guys up front played harder than we did.
And then just what is it like to have this receiving trio? Because even when we've seen Danny put up the
Mhm.
over 100 yards every game, but then this game we had Leland Smith, reset Mark,
Yeah.
and Kyrie Schultz also had a great game as well.
It's tough. I mean, when you got three guys that are playing really, really well, and with Jackson as our tight end, he's also finding holes in the defense. It puts a lot of pressure on the perimeter, and going into the game, we saw a lot of other teams that Air Force played, and they played a lot of man-to-man coverage and tried to bring some pressures and also, some sim pressures. They weren't going to do that to us. They're going to play coverage. Their safeties were bailing out of there. The other coverage was sinking back, and we had, guys open. And so Leland and even Danny on some of the other routes, and Kyrie, just getting the ball out quick to them, try to help neutralize the rush a little bit and getting back the yards off of some of the negative plays. So it's nice having those guys out there, but we got to be stronger in the core. We got to play better in the core for us to win football games and ultimately finish drives in the end zone. That's some things that's plagued us, that's prevented us from getting touchdowns. It's when the field shortens down and there's not as much space, your strength or your core has to go ahead and take over and play and finish in the end zone. And when we are able to do that, it's easy. You see Steve Chavez, you see Lamar, finish in the end zone. And so it's not that we're not capable of it. It's just we got to be more consistent on it. Because the week before, it was easy. I'm going to add to that. The week before it was easy. It's like hand the ball off, and I even go back to I look at the stats. I think we had 13 plays in the red zone. We only threw 5 of it, and I think only 3 of them were drop back passes. The rest were run plays. So we just got to do a better job of just being clean, and that's the thing we talked about in week 1: play clean football, target, get your IDs, and go play harder than the opponent. Not match the play harder than the opponent fight.
Hey, Coach Niles Hall with the Spear. During the season, we've seen the offense stall out at different points in the game.
Mhm.
I know you talked about you tell the offense to take deep breaths before they go out on a drive, but do you have like a go-to comfort call or something for the offense to find its rhythm?
It's funny that you asked that. Week to week, it's not like there's a comfort call. It's what's the best for the game plan of what we are going to see and the guys that we're going to play against. We base it off of that. It's, I would say, probably having some kind of pass attached to the run, whether it's an RPO or it's just a true run play with a little outlet throw, because our playmakers are on the perimeter. Those guys, like we talk about, those guys are, they're really good. So we always got to have an option to get the ball to Danny or Leland or Kyrie. We put a screen in, 1 or 2 screens this past game. But we tried to, when we go and play Wyoming, those guys were up front. They're really stout, and we couldn't gain a yard running the football, right? So we scored touchdowns by creating some misdirection and getting the ball to Danny on the edges. This, I think against Hawaii, I know that they were going to play coverage, and so we're going to go ahead and lighten the box and try to run the football. And Air Force had similar thoughts, and It's one of those things. But there's not like a comfort call where we're going to call this one play every single time. The other thing too is how are our players playing? We don't play with professional athletes; they're amateurs. So meaning not every day, Lamar Radcliffe or Steven or Danny. Not every day it's going to be their best games. You got to go and see how those games are going and how those guys are playing and who's got the hot hand. It's like other sports of basketball. Guys lights out shooting the football or shooting the basketball. You got to get the ball to them. Same thing with football. So we're trying to find those guys that are through the game that can make plays for us and try to get those guys the football for sure.
And then after the game, Walker said Air Force did some stuff schematically differently than expected. Do you agree with that? And then adjusting the game plan on the fly. Do you think you guys did a good job?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only thing that they did was they played more zone than man, but it's nothing that we don't practice for. And the whole premise of our offense is based off of being able to adjust versus coverages. So, it'd be concerning if we flip on the film and like, oh my gosh, nobody's open, or oh my gosh, we couldn't get the ball to this guy. I think we still average over 7 yards a play, had 400 something yards of offense, and still threw for 340. It's just it never felt in the game like the defense was stopping us. When you look at it, we stopped ourselves. We fumbled in the red zone. We threw 2 picks, and we also scored points for them for catching the safety in the end zone. So we punted one time, and it was 4th and 1, I think, right before the half. So we're not being stopped. We're stopping ourselves.
Hey, Coach. Hadi Barghouti, Spear Spartan Daily. And obviously, we talked about the trio of Kyrie, Danny, and Leland. But what have you seen from guys like Matthew Coleman, Cooper Hosh, like in those like receiver 4 and 5 roles?
Yeah. I think Coop has had his moments and has had some nice catches for us and some good plays. There's also some times where, we need probably a little bit more production out of him. Same thing with Matty Coleman. I think early on he got nicked up a little bit, didn't feel healthy. It's just trying to keep those guys engaged while the other 3 guys are playing really, really good because, like I said, those guys got the hot hand. It's hard to take them off the football field, especially with the threats that they bring and how it opens up the rest of the offense. But I think it would be great to have more production out of those guys for sure. If we could get more production out of our 4 or 5 receivers, our 3rd or 4th running backs, and our 2nd or 3rd quarterback, and backup O-line, you're really good. But the reality is, how many plays do you have in a game? We don't average a lot, and we tend to, when we do score, we score pretty quick. So it's one of those things and in a drive, we do a lot of tempo. So it's hard to get those guys, in the game all the time. But when they do, they've done nice things for us for sure.
Nick Urias with KSJS. Coach, you talked about, just Air Force number 96 on the defensive line. Nevada's got their own guy, number 32 on the D line that's got over 6.5 sacks this year. I mean, how essential is protection and, just the communication this week just to keep him in check on the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, I think it's all those guys. It's not just him, but it's the 2 edge pieces. Those guys are really athletic. They're long. They're fast. So in what we do, we got to go ahead and protect the quarterback, and we got to be able to run the football. So it's going to be important for us to play harder and more physical. I mean, Hawaii, those guys are really good. Air Force 96 is really good. Nevada, those guys up front are really good. I mean, that's the league. We got guys that we face that's really good up front. We got to just be, not just up for the challenge, but we got to be ready to dominate those guys. Because when we do, it's pretty silly, but when we don't, it's hard. It makes it hard. But at the same time, too, we talked today as an offense, and the 2 things that I told them is just, guys, for the rest of the year, 2 things required. Just do what your coach should do, and just play harder. Just play harder. That's all we got to do. And also reminding them, we're first in the nation in passing. I don't know when the last time that happened here, and we're 23rd in the country in total offense. So nothing's broke. It's just we got to be more consistent and finish in the end zone and just toughen up down there.
How you doing, Coach? Nick Austin with Ziala. We all know like the deep pass, especially this offense, is very efficient and very good. But you just mentioned plays like screens and bubble screens, stuff like that. Does that stuff become more I guess, attractive now that teams maybe are trying to take away the deep ball and be very prevent almost?
Um, yeah, I mean, you look at it. We had a nice screen to I think it was Lamar down in the red zone, and there was some things around the perimeter that we got to get cleaned up. We threw another screen down there to Leland. I think it was around like the 12-yard line or so. We weren't able to get our linemen out on that. There's some we run the draw plays. Draws have been really really good. I think we had one pulled back on a call, but there's also the thing about this offense is we do try to push the ball, not every time, but there's layers to everything. We're attacking the whole field, and if they do lift back, there's guys open underneath, and I think that's some of the things that was batted down. All those, if you go back and look at those plays, those balls that were batted down was intended for those guys, and they're pretty open. So we just got to get their hands down and just get the ball to them. And it wasn't where it was maybe like 5 seconds. It was 2.5 seconds, and just get the ball to them. There's a lot of space underneath.
Hey, Coach. Mitchell Park from Journalism 138. Coach Ken talked about those batted balls. He said that probably the most batted ball this season.
Yeah.
Can you help break down what goes into stopping people from, I guess, playing that vertical game? And then is there some decision in like the pass type? Are there things that are more likely to get batted down? And then what makes Air Force like particularly good at that?
Yeah. First part of your question was sorry. Start me off again. The first part of your question.
Sorry. Just help me understand what you're telling the
How to
line.
prevent the
how
balls
you
from getting
prevent
batted
it.
down.
Or what makes them an individual so good at batting them down?
Yeah, I think it really, it's one of those things where it's a blessing and a curse, I think, because we get the ball out so quick, and they know that they're not going to be able to get to the quarterback. So some of those guys, they can read maybe the sets of the offensive linemen. Sometimes those guys just know they're not great pass rushers, so they're going to go ahead and just kind of mirror the offensive line and just play the quarterback's hand. To prevent that, we got to get sticky on the offensive line, and we got to get engaged, and we got to fight with those guys to get their hands down. That's the first thing. Second thing is, those are when you take away those passing lanes. That's where if we're trying to take shots and everything lifts off, then you just kind of check it down. That's where those guys are getting in the lanes. And how do we prevent, or is there other plays that we can get the ball out around the perimeter without that? All depends. I mean, you got 4 or 5 guys in front of you, and if you're trying to get it out on the perimeter, this side or that side, if this guy is playing the quarterback's hands and they're getting their hands up, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I think it's just a mixture of things, and that's something that's been a point of emphasis for sure, because we had 6 batted down this past game, and I want to say like last year we had maybe 10 or 12 overall. So this year we've had a lot more, but it's attributed to getting the ball out quick and not being able to sack Walker. I think that's a big part of it too.
And then can I ask one more about the hot hand? You talked about the hot hand a lot. Before the game, either in practice or the day of, are you identifying guys, and does that affect your game plan, like who you're going to be thrown to?
I mean, when you look at it, it's guys like Danny Scudero. We're trying to get him to football. Leland Smith. Guys that have shown to make plays. Kyrie shows. We're trying to get the ball to Steven, and we're trying to get the ball to everybody. But as the game progresses, when you go and you watch a couple, let's say for instance, we knew during the Hawaii game, as the game was going on, we're going to get Steven the football down in the red zone, because that guy was he finishes in the end zone. You know what I mean? This past game, we were trying to do the same thing. We were handing the ball off to him. We were trying to get the ball to Leland. He's a big body guy. In the red zone. And we've done that in other games too, trying to throw him back shoulder fades, trying to get Danny on some quick little things, and just getting him in space. We've done that a few games too. So it's just playing to the strengths of what the guys that we have, and then also trying to see schematically what the defense is doing and how can we take advantage of that. If they're loading the box, we got to get out to the perimeter. If they're playing, not letting us throw the ball in the end zone, then we got to be able to run the football and finish. Yeah.
Okay. But like, Is there anything that goes into like reading the attitude of the guys, or just like who's obviously
Yeah.
feeling good that week in practice?
I think there's been the same guys that have been consistently like in the week. I mean, if they're performing in games, we all say the way you practice typically is the way you perform in games. So those guys typically perform really well in practice. In the game, there's some times where you're identifying this guy, he's catching everything thrown to him, or man, this guy can't be tackled, And there's also some times where Danny Scudero's like, Coach, just get the ball in my hands. You know what I mean? So sometimes there's a communication piece. Sometimes it's because I love to listen to the players. So there's moments in the game where Leland's like, I can jump over the guy, I'm awesome, or I can just give me a back shoulder. All right, we'll give him a back shoulder. You know what I mean? So there's some guys that over the course of time that there's trust built and you respect that, and players play the game. So if a playmaker is asking for the football, let's go ahead and get them that. And on the call sheet, which I study throughout the day, there is a section that's get the ball to, and there's specific sections and there's plays that's highlighted for those guys. So if I know those guys are playing really well or we need to get them the football, all I got to do is in between a series be like, oh, that's right, Danny Scudero gets the ball in this, or Leland gets the ball in this, or Lamar gets the ball in that.